Hello, it's me, Dude. In this video, I want to talk about the creative differences when making a DLC versus starting a new game project altogether. Keep in mind, I will be speaking from the perspective of a solo game developer. I don't have a team of people working with me, and all the, for example, game levels and all the programming side, I have to take care of it myself. So I'll be speaking from the perspective of a person like that. So, the most important thing is that DLCs, at least in my case, can be limiting in scope. They can be limiting in scope, creativity, and many more different things. What I mean by that is you are working with the same tech and the same engine when you make a DLC, right? And so, if your intent is to make new content in the form of, for example, a new story campaign, you have to use the same tech and the same engine. If you don't want to do that, you have to basically build on top of your tech to fit the needs that it needs to fit. That also raises a problem, is that if you are modifying the engine or the tech for a particular piece of DLC, it raises the question: will the game still be backwards compatible with the old base game? Will the old save files load, and all these things that poses a lot of challenges, lots of problems to solve. The second thing that is limiting is also the fact that when you make a DLC for a game, you must adhere to the core game design of the base game. What I mean by that is, if I were to make a DLC, I would want it to have a lot of significant changes to how the NPCs work, for example, their AI and such, right? That's what I would want to do. But with a DLC, you can't really do that, because doing that means changing the core gameplay experience for a lot of people that have already played the game or are in the process of playing through it. Expansion packs, in my case at least, don't make a whole lot of sense from a business point either. It's better to make a new game, in my case, because when you start to make a new game, you're not limited by the design of the previous game. You're free to make whatever changes to the game in the gameplay aspect as you see fit. You're free to change the tech that the game uses in any way that you see fit, and so many more things. Because there is no 1.0 version yet, you're free to change it in however way you want, because it's not the last game anymore. It's a new game, which means that any limitations, any flaws, or anything that you wanted to add or change or whatever, you can do that, and there's no risk of ruining someone else's playthrough of your game. And it's just fun to get creative and try new things. So in that regard, DLCs, at least in my case, are more fun if I get to instead make a new game. I don't know if you noticed, but I'm making a Intravenous 1 campaign remaster, whatever you want to call it, remaster port, DLC for the second game. And the point of that campaign is to, first of all, to let people play the original, but with all the improvements and additions of the second game, who haven't played the first game. And also for all the people who have played both the first and the second game, to give them the ability to play through the first game with all the improvements and additions of the second game. Aside from that, it also improves the levels, adds new routes, adds new ways to go through the level, updates the soundtrack. In the original, for example, there were 2 levels that did not have their own unique musical tracks for those levels. And so in the remaster, we're fixing that. And the reason why the original did not have that is because I simply did not have the budget for commissioning Xtruller for a couple of more tracks. And then it also is going to feature a new localization from, remade from the ground up. The localization for the first game was made by community members who were very kind to reach out, and some of them do it without charging me a single cent, for which I'm eternally grateful. I would still prefer to, pay them, but some of them just said that they didn't do it for the money, and so they ended up just helping me out big time that way. However, that's the extent of the DLC that I would like to make for Intravenous 2. With Intravenous 2, I've explored all the things that I wanted to explore in terms of gameplay. So from a DLC perspective, there's not a whole lot of reason for me to make a DLC, because when it comes to the story, if I'm writing some kind of story, I'm also writing the gameplay around it, right? I'm designing the gameplay around the story. And with both Intravenous 1 and 2, that means that, you know, the core gameplay depends on the story. I can't just write up a story with the existing gameplay mechanics and not have it be boring or interesting. And just so happens that the gameplay mechanics that I write the story around, they happen to be, you know, require a lot of changes in the engine and in the tech itself. And so, like I said already, it would be just too limiting to make a DLC with new content, because it would be like 50% of what it could have been. And so that's why the remastered DLC will be the only DLC expansion, whatever you want to call it, for the second game, because if I ever make a third Intravenous, it's going to have a lot of new gameplay mechanics and various features and stuff like that that will require new tech, you know, lots of programming, which is honestly better saved for a new project than sort of like doing it half-assed with a DLC where you add new things, but you're also trying to adhere to the gameplay design of the game that it's made for. Basically, it's a matter of putting my full effort into something versus putting less effort into something and getting a product that would not be as good as it could have been if I had just made a new game. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. See you next time.